She controlled a $7 billion fortune, yet tonight she was wearing a scratchy polyester shirt that made her skin crawl, all because she needed to know if any man would stay when the money vanished. The boardroom hummed with that particular silence only money can buy. Sterile, controlled. The air conditioning whispered through vents designed to filter out any trace of the outside world. Claire sat at the polished mahogany table, her manicured nail tracing lazy circles on the rim of a crystal glass, watching her chief financial officer's mouth move without hearing a single word. 32 years old, CEO of a shipping empire she'd resurrected from her father's ashes, and absolutely suffocating. She studied the CFO's expensive tie, the way his eyes kept flicking toward her face, reading her microexpressions like a stock ticker. Everyone did it. Investors, colleagues. Every single man she'd met for dinner over the past year, they didn't see Claire, they saw a vault, a golden parachute, a spreadsheet with legs. "Thank you, James," she cut in, her voice flat. "Email me the summary, we're done." She didn't wait for the scramble. She stood, the whisper of custom Italian wool following her out of the room. 10 minutes later, Claire had vanished. In her place stood Clara. Clara wore a mustard-yellow blouse from a thrift store bin, 100% polyester, the tag scratched against her neck like sandpaper. She swapped her leather loafers for flat shoes with cardboard visible near the left heel. She scrubbed her face raw, leaving her skin blotchy and unprotected. Her hair, normally a sleek helmet, was yanked into a messy claw clip. She looked tired, ordinary, broke. It was her favorite armor. The burner phone buzzed, a text from date number 35, running 10 minutes late. Claire stared at the cracked screen, feeling the familiar knot of cynicism tighten in her chest. Date 34 had been a marketing executive. He'd spent 20 minutes bragging about his BMW lease until Clara, the struggling receptionist drowning in medical debt, mentioned eviction. His eyes had glazed over. He'd excused himself to the bathroom and never returned. She'd spent years building walls so high that nobody could hurt her, but nobody could reach her either. Her therapist called it a maladaptive defense mechanism. Claire called it quality control. She slipped through the service elevator, bypassed her waiting driver, and walked 3 blocks to the subway. The descent from climate-controlled perfection to the subterranean heat was a physical assault. The air smelled of rust, dried urine, and wet concrete. Claire gripped a greasy pole, letting the train's sway knock her against strangers. No one looked twice. No one adjusted their tie. She was invisible. Tonight's venue was a 24-hour diner on the industrial edge of town. Sticky laminate tables. The lingering odor of burnt frying oil that clung to everything. Claire slid into a vinyl booth in the back, the red cracked material scraping against her leg. She ordered black coffee. It arrived in a thick ceramic mug and tasted like battery acid. She was ready for the disappointment. Ready for the man to walk in, realize she wasn't hiding a trust fund, and bolt. The door rattled open. A black man stood in the entryway, scanning the room frantically. He didn't look like a junior executive. He didn't look like someone searching for a free ride. He looked like he'd just crawled out of a shipwreck. His name was Caleb, according to his profile, 33, maintenance worker. "Clara?" he asked, stopping at the booth's edge, breathing hard. Claire looked at him, really looked. Faded gray Henley with a dark, damp spot near the collar. Jeans worn white at the knees. His hands, resting on the sticky table, were rough, knuckles chapped with traces of ingrained grease. His dark face showed a strong jaw and decent cheekbones buried under layers of exhaustion, purple bruises of fatigue beneath his eyes more visible against his brown skin. He smelled like cheap laundry detergent and something sweet, crushed cereal. "Yes," she said, pitching her voice higher, softer. "I'm Clara. I'm so sorry I'm late," he rushed out, sliding into the booth. "The babysitter canceled 20 minutes before I was supposed to leave. My neighbor stepped in, but then the bus," he dragged a hand down his face. "It's no excuse. Have you been waiting long?" He wasn't checking his phone. He wasn't scanning the room. He was looking directly into her eyes, and the panic in his apology was genuinely raw. "Just a few minutes," Claire lied. Still a terrible first impression. He winced as his finger stuck to the menu's plastic covering. "I'm Caleb, it's nice to finally meet you in person." "Babysitter?" Claire latched onto the detail. "You have a kid," Caleb froze. The menu lowered, a look of ingrained defensiveness flashed across his tired dark eyes. He squared his shoulders against the cracked vinyl. "Daughter Maya, she's 4. He swallowed hard. "It was in my profile, did you not see it?" He was bracing for her to leave. She could see it in his clenched jaw. He was used to women hearing kid and suddenly remembering they'd left the oven on. Claire hadn't read his profile carefully. The men were just variables. "I missed it," she said softly. "Maya's a beautiful name." The tension drained from him so fast he practically slumped. "Yeah, she is, a terror but beautiful." The waitress appeared. "What can I get you?" Caleb's eyes darted to the right side of the menu, the prices. Claire watched his pupils track the numbers. She knew that movement. She'd watched her own father do it, calculating how much dignity he could afford. "Just coffee," Caleb said, "and maybe a side of fries." The waitress raised an eyebrow. "That's it, no burger, big late lunch," but his stomach betrayed him with a hollow rumble. A flush crept up his dark neck. Claire felt the polyester tag bite into her skin. She suddenly felt nauseous. "I'll have the same," she said quickly. "Fries and water." The waitress shrugged and left. Caleb's eyes narrowed slightly. "You don't have to get just fries on my account." "I've got it." "No, really." Claire leaned forward, time to deploy the test. "Honestly, Caleb, I'm kind of struggling right now. I don't really have the budget for going out." Caleb didn't flinch. He didn't glance at her cheap clothes with disdain. Instead, something flickered in his eyes, recognition. "Rough patch?" he asked quietly. Claire nodded, looking at her hands. "Medical debt. Hours got cut at the dental office. I'm scared to look at my bank account." She waited for the withdrawal, the uncomfortable shifting, the sudden phone check. Instead, Caleb reached across the table. He didn't grab her hand. He just laid his rough, grease-stained dark knuckles on the table an inch from hers, a gesture of solidarity. "I know that feeling," he said, voice dropping below the diner's clatter. "That tightness in your chest. When the math just won't work out." Claire stared at his hand. He was describing exactly how she'd felt at 14, watching her father cry in the kitchen. "How do you deal with it?" she asked. For the first time, she wasn't acting. "You just keep moving." Caleb shrugged. "Don't look at the whole mountain, just the next step. Rent, groceries, electric bill, chop it into smaller monsters." The waitress dropped 2 baskets of fries between them. Steam rose, carrying the smell of hot grease and salt. Caleb pulled the ketchup bottle over, hitting the bottom with practiced precision. "Besides," he offered a tired smile that suddenly made his dark, handsome face devastatingly warm. "Fry by fry, right?" They talked for 2 hours. The diner emptied, leaving only truckers and insomniacs. The fluorescent lights hummed a persistent drone, yet Claire didn't want to leave. She played Clara perfectly. Fictional roommates, leaking roof, broken down car, and Caleb listened. He didn't try to solve her problems with unsolicited advice. He nodded, passed the ketchup, shared stories of his own broken radiator and the nightmare of affordable childcare. He worked maintenance for a large public school district. Boilers, plumbing, graffiti removal, backbreaking, thankless work. "The worst part isn't the mess," Caleb said, swirling his cold coffee. His dark eyes stared out the rain-streaked window. "It's the kids, seeing them come to school in winter without coats, shoes falling apart, and I'm just the guy fixing the radiator. I can't do anything about the rest." He looked back at her, exhaustion etched deep into his brown face. "Makes me terrified for Maya. Every day I drop her at daycare, I pray I'm doing enough. Some people build walls to protect themselves, others just keep showing up even when they're already drowning." Claire sat perfectly still. Under the table, her hands trembled. She thought about her charitable foundation, galas in $10,000 gowns, champagne and auction paddles. Sitting across from Caleb, her philanthropy felt violently obscene. "You're a good dad," she said softly. "I'm a tired dad," Caleb snorted. "I feed my kids cereal for dinner twice a week because I'm too burned out to boil water, but I try." The waitress appeared with the check, slapping it down between them. The air shifted, easy camaraderie replaced by stark reality. The meal was over. The toll was due. Claire's heart rate spiked. This was the crescendo, the moment men revealed themselves. "I can split it," she lied smoothly. Caleb's hand shot out, catching her wrist, gentle but firm. "Don't. I ate half the fries, Clara." He pulled the check toward himself. "You told me you're terrified to look at your bank account. I asked you out. This is on me. But you're struggling too. You need that money for Maya." Caleb looked down at the slip, barely $9. But for a black man counting every cent in a world that had never made it easy, $9 wasn't nothing. It was milk and cereal, quarter tank of gas, another small weight on shoulders already bowed. He reached into his back pocket. A battered leather wallet, worn thin at the edges. Inside, no sleek metallic cards, just a thin stack of cash. Claire watched, paralyzed, as he pulled out a 5 and 4 crumpled ones. He smoothed them on the table with deliberate care, added quarters from his pocket for a tip. Not with a flourish, not to prove his masculinity. Quietly, carefully, a black man honoring a commitment he'd made even when every system was stacked against him. Claire wanted to scream, wanted to grab the crumpled singles and throw a stack of hundreds on the table. Wanted to tell him she could buy this diner and bulldoze it before breakfast. The most expensive thing in the world isn't money, it's trust, and once broken, no fortune can buy it back. "Thank you," she managed to whisper, throat tight. "Anytime." Caleb slid out of the booth. "Shall I walk you to your car? I took the bus. It's late, let me give you a ride. It's a beater, but it runs." She should have said no, ended the date, added him to her spreadsheet. Instead, she nodded. They walked to his car. A 2008 Honda Civic, paint peeling on the hood, rear bumper held by zip ties. Caleb unlocked the passenger door with a key. As Claire slipped onto the worn fabric seat, her foot kicked something, a cheap plastic tiara missing 3 fake rhinestones. She picked it up, sticky from juice. Weightless, it felt heavier than the solid gold paperweight on her desk. Caleb got in. The engine turned over twice, then roared to life with a noisy exhaust rattle. He saw her holding the tiara and gave a sheepish smile that crinkled the corners of his dark eyes. "Maya leaves her royal jewels everywhere. She insists she's queen of the car." Claire stared at the plastic crown, traced the empty sockets where rhinestones used to be. She'd spent months setting traps, waiting for men to prove how ugly the world was. She wanted to be right about human nature, that everyone was selfish, that everyone stepped on heads to reach the lifeboat. Caleb hadn't just passed her test, he'd dismantled it entirely. This black man with calloused hands and a broken car had taken his scarce resources, time, empathy, crumpled dollar bills, and offered them to a stranger drowning in fake water. "I am a monster," Claire thought. A billionaire sitting in a poor black man's broken car, playing games with his life. "Where to, Clara?" Caleb asked, putting the car in gear. Claire looked up, city lights reflected in his tired, kind, dark eyes. She took a breath. "Caleb," she said, her voice shaking for the first time in 10 years, "I need to tell you something." The heater rattled, blowing lukewarm, dusty air. Outside, freezing drizzle began to fall, smearing streetlights into yellow streaks. "Where to, Clara?" Caleb asked again, both hands on the peeling steering wheel. "Pull over." He frowned. "What? We're on an overpass, it's raining." "Caleb, please." The sharpness made him blink. He checked mirrors and guided the rattling Civic to the shoulder, tires crunching over wet gravel. He threw it in park. The engine idled, vibrating the floorboards. "Are you okay? Did the food—" "My name isn't Clara." She stared straight ahead at the windshield wipers. "It's Claire, Claire Haverson." Caleb stared. The name clearly meant nothing. "I don't have medical debt," she continued, voice mechanically flat. "I don't live with roommates. I didn't take the bus. My driver is in a Maybach 3 blocks away." Silence, heavier than the rain drumming on the metal roof. "I own a logistics firm," Claire said, forcing herself to meet his dark eyes. "A massive one. I'm very wealthy, Caleb. I've been on 34 blind dates before you. Every time men treated me like an ATM." So I started dressing cheap, making up stories. I wanted to see who would run. Caleb didn't move, didn't blink, his brown face remained unreadable. A test, he said quietly. Yes, I wanted to see if someone would stay when there was nothing to gain. Claire's throat tightened. The defense mechanism she'd relied on for years suddenly felt utterly pathetic. And you didn't just stay. She looked at his worn wallet on the center console. Caleb followed her gaze. When he looked back, the warmth in his eyes was gone. In its place, a cold devastation worse than anger. The look of a black man who just realized he was the punchline to a very expensive joke, yet another reminder that the world saw him as less than. "I bought your dinner," he whispered. "I'll pay you back, pay me back." His voice rose, quiet shock fracturing into visceral disgust. "You watched me pull crumpled single dollars out of my wallet, count quarters for $9, you couldn't break character. This is my life." Caleb slammed his hand against the steering wheel, the plastic groaned. "I am drowning, up at 4 a.m. fixing boilers so my daughter can eat generic cereal, and you thought it would be a fun sociological experiment to play poor for the evening? It wasn't a game." "Don't touch me." He recoiled from her reaching hand. "Do you know what $9 is to me?" His chest heaved, breathing ragged. "Gas for the week. Maya's field trip fee. I gave it to you because I thought you were drowning too. I thought I was throwing a life preserver to someone in the same storm." He let out a bitter laugh. "But you weren't in the water, were you? You were on a yacht watching me paddle. I didn't know you would be what? A human being? Please, you're the only one who passed." Passed, he spat the word. "I'm not a candidate for a job. I'm a black man who's been counted out his whole life. And you," he shook his head, jaw tight, "get out." "What?" "Get out of my car." He reached across and popped the passenger door open. Freezing rain immediately blew in, stinging Claire's cheeks. "It's raining. Your Maybach is 3 blocks away." Caleb stared straight ahead, refusing to look at her. "Call your driver." She sat there for 3 agonizing seconds, no crack in his resolve, none. He was an iron vault. She stepped out into the freezing night. Rain instantly soaked through her thin polyester blouse. Caleb didn't look at her. He pulled the door shut, shifted into drive, and pulled away, red taillights disappearing into the blurred storm. Claire stood on the shoulder, rain matting her hair, her cheap flats soaking through. In her right hand, she was still clutching Maya's broken plastic tiara. She pulled out her burner phone, dialed her driver. 10 minutes later, the black Maybach pulled up. The driver leapt out with a massive umbrella. The interior smelled of expensive leather. Heated seats warmed her freezing skin, but it couldn't touch the bone-deep chill radiating from her chest. She looked at the cheap plastic crown in her wet hands. She'd passed her own test. Found a good black man who'd been fighting the world his whole life, and ruined it completely. 3 weeks later, the boardroom smelled exactly as it always did, filtered money and ozone. Claire sat at the head of the mahogany table in a perfectly tailored charcoal blazer. Hair blown into sleek perfection, the CFO droned on about logistics bottlenecks. She wasn't listening. Her eyes were fixed on the object next to her crystal water glass, the plastic tiara, still missing 3 rhinestones. She hadn't cleaned the dried juice off it. "Claire," the CFO paused. "Do you agree with the revised capital allocation?" She blinked, looked at the men and women in their silk ties, all waiting for her nod. "No," she stood. "Freeze the Midwest expansion budget. I want legal to draft a new philanthropic initiative, not a gala. Not a tax shelter. Fully fund the maintenance backlog for Southside Public School District. Boilers, roof repairs, plumbing, all of it." The CFO stared. "That's a municipal issue, millions in pure sunk capital. What's the ROI?" "The ROI is that black and brown children don't freeze in their classrooms." Her voice cracked like a whip. "Do it anonymously. If my name gets attached, you're fired." Meeting adjourned. She grabbed the tiara and walked out. Buying new boilers for Caleb's school district was easy. Moving numbers on a screen, billionaire cowardice. It didn't fix what she'd broken. She couldn't buy his forgiveness. She had to earn it in the dirt. An hour later, her Maybach pulled up outside an imposing red brick elementary school, barred windows, peeling paint. A building that had been neglected for decades, like so many others in neighborhoods that didn't matter to the wealthy. "Wait here," she told her driver. She stepped out. No polyester, no cheap flats, charcoal blazer, Italian leather boots. She wasn't hiding anymore, she was exactly who she was. The school hallway smelled of industrial floor wax, old gym socks, and institutional bleach. 5:15 p.m. Kids gone, silence punctuated by the distant rhythmic squeak of a mop bucket. She followed the sound down a locker-lined corridor, found him. Caleb wore the same faded gray Henley. Back to her, kneeling on scuffed linoleum, wrenching a rusted pipe beneath a broken water fountain. His dark knuckles were slick with grease. The muscles in his broad back tensed with effort. Claire stopped 10 feet away, her heart hammered against her ribs. Caleb, the wrench stopped turning. Caleb's shoulders tensed. He didn't turn around immediately, carefully wiped his grease-stained hands on a rag, dropped the wrench into a metal toolbox with a loud clang, slowly stood. He turned, looked at her, tailored wool, pristine boots, aura of a woman who owned the world. His dark face remained completely guarded, a wall built from years of being underestimated. "The school's closed," he said flatly. "Visitors need to check in by 3. I didn't come to visit the school." Claire's mouth was dry. "I came to apologize." "You already did that in the car." "No, I panicked in the car." She forced the words out. "I was defensive, I treated you like an experiment, and when you reacted like a human being, I didn't know how to handle it. I am deeply, profoundly sorry. Not just for lying, for watching you sacrifice what little you had for a lie." Caleb paused, looked over his shoulder. The anger was gone, but the weariness absolute, a bone-deep exhaustion that came from a lifetime of carrying more than his share. "Why are you here, Claire, really? Conscience hurt? Need to clear your karma so you can sleep?" "I haven't slept in 3 weeks." Her voice shook, but she let it. "I spent my whole life building armor. I thought if I had enough money, nobody could ever hurt me or use me again. I tested men because I wanted them to fail. I wanted an excuse to stay alone." She reached into her coat pocket, pulled out the plastic tiara. "You're the only person who ever looked at me who I pretended to be and just saw someone who needed a hand. You didn't want anything from me, you just wanted to help me carry the weight." Caleb stared at the plastic crown, didn't reach for it. "I don't belong in your world," he said quietly. "And you don't belong in mine. I can't afford to play games with rich people. If I fall, my daughter falls, no safety net, and I'm a black man, I don't get second chances the way you do." "I know." Claire stepped forward, gently setting the tiara on his toolbox. "I'm not asking you to play a game. I'm not asking you to trust me, I destroyed that right." She looked at his grease-stained hands, then up into his tired, dark eyes. "But I am asking if you would be willing to let me try to build it back. No costumes, no tests, no lies, just me." Caleb looked at her for a long, agonizing minute. The silence stretched tight. He looked at the tailored suit, her manicured hands, then down at the sticky tiara on his toolbox. He let out a long, slow breath. His shoulders sagged slightly, reached out, picked up the tiara. Turned it over in his rough, dark hands, his thumb traced the empty rhinestone sockets. "I get off at 6, he said, voice low, cautious. "There's a coffee cart on 4th and Elm, not a diner, just a cart." Claire felt a sharp ache in her throat. "Okay." Caleb met her eyes. The walls were still tall and fortified, but there was a tiny, microscopic crack, a sliver of hope in a man who'd learned not to hope. "But you're buying," he said. A ghost of his earlier smile flickered. Claire let out a breathless laugh that sounded perilously close to a sob. "I'm buying." She turned and walked down the long linoleum hallway. She didn't know if it would work. Didn't know if the gap between her bank account and his broken radiator was too wide to ever bridge. Didn't know if the weight of race and class and everything that divided them could be overcome. But as she pushed open the heavy metal doors and stepped out into the crisp, fading evening light, the air finally felt clean. She took a deep breath, and for the first time in a decade, she wasn't wearing any armor at all. money can buy isolation. Only courage can buy connection. If this story of raw truth, shattered egos, and imperfect second chances struck a chord with you, hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder about what truly matters, and subscribe to my channel for more grounded emotional stories. See you next time.